So on Facebook, y'all should be running the graphic by now. And on the dot of 7, you roll with the promo. So you should start the live run, the feed on Facebook.
It's Financial Information Month in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. Financial empowerment through education. If you don't know what that is, let me tell you all about it. Learn to spend wisely. Invest to grow your money. Business stability. Step up financially. Heavily regions economy. Work to financial security. Prosperity for all of we. FIM is for you and me. FIM is for everybody. So tell your friends and your whole family. Financial empowerment through education. Build yourself and the entire vision. Learn to spend wisely. Invest to grow your money. Business stability. Step up financially. Financial Information Month. Financial empowerment through education. It's Financial Information Month in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. Financial empowerment through education. If you don't know what that is, let me tell you all about it. Learn to spend wisely. Invest to grow your money. Business stability. Step up financially. Heavily regions economy. Work to financial security. Prosperity for all of we. FIM is for you and me. FIM is for everybody. So tell your friends and your whole family. Financial empowerment through education. Build yourself and the entire vision. Learn to spend wisely. Invest to grow your money. Business stability. Step up financially. Financial Information Month. Financial empowerment through education. It's Financial Information Month in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. Financial empowerment through education. If you don't know what that is, let me tell you all about it. Learn to spend wisely. Invest to grow your money. Business stability. Step up financially. Heavily regions economy. Work to financial security. Prosperity for all of we. FIM is for you and me. FIM is for everybody. So tell your friends and your whole family. Financial empowerment through education. Build yourself and the entire vision. Learn to spend wisely. Invest to grow your money. Business stability. Step up financially. Financial Information Month. Financial empowerment through education.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and the listening public across the Eastern Caribbean and beyond. Thanks for joining us today, and welcome to the 2021 Financial Information Month Virtual Business Symposium, hosted by the Bankers Association of St. Lucia and partners from across the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. The theme for tonight's business symposium is Minding Your Business, How Small Businesses Can Stay Afloat in Tough Times. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, 60% of the population within Latin America and the Caribbean either lacked the resources for an emergency and/or the financial skills to budget, save for retirement, and accumulate wealth. The COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in a severe shock to households and firms, with widespread income and revenue losses exposing their financial fragility. Therefore, we are in for a treat tonight, where our panel of experts from across the ECCU, with several years of experience in banking, entrepreneurship, funding options, and financial management, would share their expertise and perspectives on adaptation and innovation, fundamental business principles and practices, funding assistance options, managing your business finances, risk management, physical and financial, and seeking new opportunities. I am Kevin Hope, the Executive Director of the St. Kitts and Nevis Chamber of Industry and Commerce, and I would be moderating tonight's event. First, a few housekeeping matters. Each panelist would have a maximum of 3 minutes to offer their perspective on the topic, followed by a question and answer session. Each topic is estimated to last between 15 to 20 minutes. We will be running a live question and answer session at the end of each presentation. So if you have any questions during the presentations, please use the chat function in the app. Also send your comments via the Facebook Live platform, after which we will be filtering the questions and put them to the presenters. We wish to recognize the radio station broadcasting our symposium, Anguilla, Radio Anguilla, 95.5 FM, ABS Radio, 90.5 FM from Antigua and Barbuda, DBS Radio from Dominica, WeFM, Sister Isle Radio, GBN Classic Radio, 105.5 from Grenada, Radio Montserrat, ZIZ Radio and Vaughan Radio from St. Christopher and Nevis, The Wave, St. Lucia, and NBC Radio, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Permit me to invite Dr. Valda Henry, the Deputy Governor of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, to offer opening remarks.
Good evening, I'm Kevin. Sorry, Sorry about this delay. Good evening. Kevin, good evening. It is for me a real pleasure to congratulate the St. Lucia, the Bankers Association of St. Lucia, and all the FIM ECCU partners. Since 2002, FIM has been on, with the goal of a financially developed and vibrant ECCU region that fosters strong and sustainable economic growth and improved well-being of the citizenry. This is so in keeping with the strategic vision of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, which is transformation of the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, advancing the good of the people, where we can all thrive rather than survive. And so this evening, with your theme for this conference, Minding Your Business, how small businesses can stay afloat in tough times, so very pertinent, especially in this time. We know that the small business sector is the engine of growth in any economy, yet that sector has suffered tremendously. And I really want to commend you, the financial partners, the banks, for really stepping up to provide services and to provide relief to the small businesses. And for you to now be putting on this conference when the focus for FIM 2021 is innovation in the face of financial adversity, respond, recover, rise. And I really hope that we have a large audience of the small business sector, because I really want them to recognize that while, yes, COVID has brought lots of challenges, COVID has almost brought many of us to our knees and the small business sector to its knees. COVID has also provided opportunities for innovation, opportunities for doing things differently, opportunities for stopping and taking stock. Where am I? Where it is I want it to be, and what must I do to get there? What it calls for is for greater focus, greater emphasis on purpose, And in fact, when we just think of small businesses, what are your goals? What are your vision? What is your vision for your company? It is said that a people without a vision will perish, while a business without a vision will also perish. And so what it demands of the small business sector, in event you didn't have a vision, to stop and craft one. And not just out of the pie sky things, but to look at your strengths. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses, challenges? But more to look at what are the opportunities presented by COVID and even beyond, and how do we adapt? How do we innovate? How do we take care, of advantage of all the digitization of the economies? And when I look at the topic, it's just so pertinent. Adaptation and innovation, fundamental business principles, funding assistance and options, managing your business finances, risk management, seeking new opportunities. And one of the lessons of COVID, and I know that's the emphasis too of the FIM month, is the importance of managing our finances well. What gives most of us nightmares and cannot sleep on the small business sector is the fact that they are unable to meet their commitments. And even when the banks have been quite generous by providing moratoriums, some of the small business sector still suffer. And so it demands that in again taking a critical and a clinical look at your finances. What are your assets? What are your expenses? And then to be able to craft and to work with your financial partner in crafting a way out for you. And they are the ones who are here putting that on, that seminar. And I really want to commend the financial institutions and the bankers. When I look at the speakers, it's truly experts across our region. Every one of our ECCU territories represented on that speakers list, with the exception of Montserrat. But 7 out of 8, tremendous. And what that says, right within our region, there is capacity. And I really want to encourage and thank you, the partners, the Bankers Association of St. Lucia, for collaborating with your other sister organizations to put this on for our small business sector. And I really pray that God, blesses you with, wisdom, and you just take advantage of the opportunities presented to you so you can truly respond to the challenges, innovate so you can recover, and then rise to prosperity. And so on behalf of Governor Antoine and all of us at ECCB, I wish you a successful symposium this evening, and just pray that God continues to bless us and watch over us in our region. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Henry, for your contribution and challenge for small businesses to chart a vision, undertake a financial health check, and innovate as we re-emerge stronger and more resilient. So, without any further ado, permit me to invite the first panel on fundamental business principles and practices. We invite Ms. Islyn Brown, business banking manager for CIBC FCIB Antigua, and Mr. Jerick Evangelista, the Chief Financial Officer for NCBA, to join us in offering their perspective. Ms. Islyn Brown.
Thank you so much. It is indeed a privilege to be here. And as we focus on the topic of minding your business, it is important to consider fundamental business principles and practices. These are statements that a business implements in order to identify its priorities, guide behaviors within the organization, and aid in future decision-making. The business environment is ever-changing, and there is much uncertainty about the future. Despite these turbulent times, small businesses must adhere in the course, remaining resilient so as to increase the likelihood of making it safely to the other side of the crisis. So let's focus a bit on some of these principles and practices. Number one, establish a business plan. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. This basically means that success doesn't happen by accident. Formulating a business plan should be the first consideration for any business. The primary purpose of a business plan, simply put, is to establish your plans for the future. These plans should include your goals and objectives, how they will be achieved, and the time frame for achievement. A plan also allows for business operators to assess where they are in terms of progress, determine what's working and what isn't, and make adjustments along the way to ensure the plan remains relevant and realistic. Number two, create quality products and services. Creating a high quality product or service can set you apart from the competitors and encourage customers to be loyal to your brand. Customers are always seeking value, and successful businesses usually are always finding ways to address the needs and preferences of the consumers. Focusing on quality and consistency in your brand improve customer satisfaction. Number three, understand the environment. Businesses do not operate in a vacuum, but rather in a dynamic environment with many influences, including government, social, technological, and legal conditions. Learn about your industry in which your business is operating, the opportunities as well as any restrictions needs to be considered. Know who your competitors are and who the key market players are, their pricing and marketing strategies. The pandemic is going to change the market trends for the foreseeable future, and you need to be ready to ensure that your business stays afloat. Number four, create the right team. Your employees are your most important assets. You can help, they can help to build a successful business or be the cause of your ultimate downfall. Businesses should therefore hire and train their staff so that they represent the mission and the goals of the organization. Treat employees with respect, recognize their accomplishments. Showing consideration for their well-being can encourage them to perform their best, even in tough times. Number five, establish and maintain good relationships. First, good relationship with customers. Customers may not always be right, but you always need to do whatever you can to make things right. Always treat them with high regard and understanding. Endeavor to resolve issues with patience and consideration, and this would help to build trust. In crisis times, stay in touch with your customers and show that you care. Also, it is important to build good relationship with your bank, which is key and essential to getting the needed support and financing, especially in these tough times. Other principles for consideration include using cash flow and capital wisely and maintaining accurate financial records. And so at this time, I will turn it over to Jared to elaborate more on those principles.
Thank you, Islin and Jared. Jarek?
Thank you so much, Islin, and good evening, everyone. I'm going to discuss now the fundamental principles of accounting. To help small business stays afloat, business need to ensure that you have an up-to-date financial statements. Not only up-to-date, but having an accurate financial statements is very important in every businesses. As everybody knows, the objective of financial statements is to provide information about the financial position, performance, and changes in financial position of an enterprise that is very useful to a wide range of users in making economic decisions, especially you as the business owners. Preparing an accurate financial statements and timely financial statements will help you understand your business and your business going forward. In addition, every financial institutions nowadays are requiring financial statements for you to be able to access loans and credits. Some are even requiring an audited financial statements. Financial statements should be understandable, relevant, reliable, and comparable. This can be achieved by following the 8 basic principles of accounting. Firstly, the objectivity principles. These principles have the ability to rely on documented information to record financial information. Number 2, arm's length transactions. You need to ensure that and avoid related party relationship, looking out for the business or yourself at being shoved by other parties. Number 3, costs. In accounting, it's the amount of cash the business is giving up to acquire a specific product or service. Going concern means that the company is going to be in operation the next financial year, and this makes the business attractive for potential investors. Number 5, monetary measurement concept, which says every accounting transactions deals with money. The revenue recognition principle, number 6, is requiring us that all revenue in our financial statements should be recognized when it is earned and not when we receive the cash. The accrual basis of accounting, and the most important one is the separate entity recognition principle, which requires us that all the personal dealings of the owners of the company should be separate from the personal dealing, from the business dealings. In my 13 years of experience, this is the most a problem that business owners usually encountered in, and as an auditors as well, wherein there's a significant issue on how to separate business dealings and personal dealings. For us to be able to prepare accurate financial statements, we need to ensure that personal dealings and business dealings should be done separately. Also, for small businesses, there are required financial statements preparation under the financial reporting standards. But there's also an IFRS for small and medium enterprise, which is a modified version of the financial statements under IFRS. So this can be used by businesses once they are required to prepare an audited financial statements. Understanding your business cash flows is again an important aspect for you to be able to stay afloat in this current situation during the pandemic. As you understand, business cash flows is the in and out of your cash. And for us to be able to improve our cash flows, we need to ensure that you follow 4 steps. Prepare your business cash flow accurately. You need to understand how much your money is available to you. Prepare your cash flow forecast. This will help you plan ahead for any financial impact of various crises and issues and whether you need additional financing or not. Make informed decisions and exercise control. Use information available to you. Cash flow margin, cash flow over sales, how sales are being converted to cash. And also the burn rate, the negative cash flow, how much money you need at hand to survive without making money. And eventually improve your cash flow immediately over time, and consider current situation as well as the future for you to be able to ensure that you're going to stay afloat regardless of the economic downturn that we're going to face going forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jarek. I have 2 questions. And so it's estimated that about 80% of our enterprises within the ECCU are micro, small, and medium enterprises. And while there is consistency between both presentations with respect to cash flow, with respect to business plans, quality products and services, a good proportion of these enterprises are actually informal. So the first question, how important is it for enterprises to become formalized, and what are the benefits? And let me ask the second question, so I guess both of you can also weigh in. Similarly, in light of how many skill sets or disciplines for which enterprises are required to undertake, whether it be with respect to cash flow, business plan, understanding costing and pricing. The second question is, how important is it for enterprises to join or participate in business support organizations? And how do you foresee this can actually help them to weather the storm, let's say future shocks?
I'm going to take on question number one. I think it's very important for all businesses to be in the formal status. As mentioned in the number 8 accounting principle is really on the separation of the business and personal dealings of a company. Because in my experience, once a business is informal and there's no proper separation of business dealings, it just created a lot of problems. You will not determine your financial performance because at the end of the day, the personal life is being commingled with your business life, your businesses. Cash are being put in without proper records. Expenses are being paid up, even though it's not for the business, but for the personal use or family use. So it's commingled. So there's no separation. We cannot determine how the company is currently performing, especially for those small businesses. And in my 13 years of experience in audit, that's my usual encounter, especially for small businesses and those that are being owned by a family-owned company. Islin?
I tend to agree with Jarek that businesses ought to be formally registered. Regulations are changing, whereas before you could even establish a business account in your personal name. It is now a requirement that once you're embarking on business endeavors, that regulation requires that you be formally registered. Additionally, when you're formally registered, you tend to also be more attractive to investors who wants to see registration documents and be able to make payments to a business instead of an individual. So I personally endorse that.
Okay, and with respect to the second question, any feedback with respect to how important it is, I guess, where they can build up the capacity by participating in, their local business support organizations?
Yeah, I think it's very.
Go ahead, Jared.
I think it's very important knowing that you have other capacity that can help you. Once you participate in various organizations, it can really help you, like a Chamber of Commerce, other organization that can within your businesses. It's very, very important because you have access to access to suppliers, access to customers, those kind of stuff. So once you're really involved and be part of these organizations, then it's easy. It's easy for you to be able to manage your business.
Yes, being visible within the community, also raise your profile and also allow persons to know what you stand for, to identify with your mission and your goals. And so I do believe that once you're out there identifying with other social endeavors and community efforts, that it will be good for your business.
A resounding thank you, colleagues. We're going to just break for a few seconds, and then we would move to managing your business finances. Thank you very much, Islin and Jarek.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
It's Financial Information Month in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. Financial empowerment through education. If you don't know what that is, let me tell you all about it. Learn to spend wisely. Invest to grow your money. Business stability. Step up financially. Help the region's economy. Work to financial security. Prosperity for all of we. FIM is for you and me. FIM Financial Information Month, financial empowerment through education.
We now going to invite Mr. Stephen Lander, Country Manager for CIBC First Caribbean, and Mr. Narcis Moyes, Corporate Manager, Antigua Commercial Bank, to share their perspective on managing your business finances. Stephen?
Thank you. Jarek, you gave me a very good segue into my thoughts on the issue, because in time of crisis, I think cash flow is the key factor that these small enterprises have to think about and try to manage as tightly as possible. And so I'll share some thoughts on how to do that. And I think it starts with really, determining, scaling back your business to what I will call a minimum viable product. If we think of cash flow as being positively correlated to the scale of the business, then we understand how scaling back can reduce the cash flow demand on the enterprise. So what are some ways that we can do that? It differs somewhat if you're trading in goods as opposed to providing services. So let's talk about goods. And I think the key thing there is to shorten what we call the cash conversion cycle, i.e. the amount of time that it takes to convert your inventory to actual cash. And some ways that you can do that, again, in keeping with the principle of getting back to a baseline product, is limiting the number of stock keeping units. So the number of items that you maintain in your inventory can be reduced significantly. And in doing that exercise of elimination, you want to focus on the inventory items that sell the quickest, right? So those items that you can see a higher turnover on and convert into cash more quickly are the ones that you maintain and focus on, and eliminate those items that take a little bit longer to sell and convert. Another thing that you want to do if you're a small enterprise, and it's something that really puts a strain on cash flow, is limit the credit terms that you offer to trading partners. So in doing so, you're going to reduce the number of days that your receivables are outstanding and improve your cash flow situation. Conversely, though, you want to take advantage as much as possible of credit terms being offered to you by trade partners. So if you're buying goods for resale, probably from a larger enterprise to support your inventory stocking of your business, you want to take full advantage of whatever credit terms that they offer you. For example, not to pay today, but to pay in 30 or 60 days. And that improves your cash flow. The third point I would make there is to reduce or eliminate non-essential costs. Or you could take another approach in terms of improving the efficiency of your spend. I always like to use advertising as an example for this one. I mean, we have traditional means such as radio, TV, and then we have the more modern means that focus more online and give us the ability to target more directly the market that we're going after, and in so doing, reduce the return on increase the return on advertising dollar, because our conversion rate relative to advertising spend actually increases, and we see more conversion of sales from our direct advertising. If you're in services, your key thing is to maintain a presence in the market, and how you're going to do that is kind of switch your mode of delivery. So typically services kind of hands-on. You're going to look at switching to virtual means, probably using appointments to manage the flow of traffic, because a key consideration today is actually the amount of in-person contact and the volume of traffic that you're serving within your business. Set up appointment systems, but you have to maintain that presence in the market and maintain that revenue stream, and also maintain, importantly, the quality of service that you deliver. Don't compromise on that. The third thing that I want to address is really debt. Debt can be crippling in a time of crisis because debt is obligatory. It has to be paid, regardless of what the cash flow situation is within the business. What I will advise is make contributions towards reducing debt where it's possible. A moratorium was mentioned earlier, and that's great. We're in the banking industry, and we're happy to support clients with moratoriums where needed. But it's important to remember moratoriums simply defer the payment obligation to a future date. It doesn't make it go away. So if you have a flexible payment option offered to you, I would suggest that you pay down principal. And that's going to have the effect of reducing the overall interest cost in the long run. And where there is a cash flow deficit, and I think Jared mentioned the term burn rate, you need to seek additional financing. And I encourage everyone to use the tools that are available to them, particularly for the MSMEs. I'm referring here to the ECPC, GC, the Partial Credit Guarantee Partial Credit Guarantee Corporation, the scheme that they offer will provide you with a guarantee and help you be more marketable to the financial institution in terms of accessing what credit you need to survive this storm, right? You settle your overheads and your payables in a timely manner. And that's very important for maintaining the sort of relationships that you've established with suppliers of goods, for example. We talked about trade terms earlier on. You want to maintain a good relationship and be in the good books where that is concerned. So you don't get yourself backed into a situation, for example, where people require cash up front to provide you with goods for your business, right? So always maintain, a good payment history and a positive payment relationship with those partners, those trade partners, where possible. And the last thing I would say is to be agile. I mean, as entrepreneurs, we have to respond to the environment around us. So don't be stuck thinking, how does my current model work within this environment? But think about the environment and what works in it and adjust your model to suit that. And that's going to help you, again, improve your cash flow situation and improve your odds of survivability during this crisis.
Thank you, Stephen. I think the panelists before me have pretty much captured all the critical points that I wanted to raise, but I just want to reinforce some of the issues that have been raised so far. I think cash flow seems to be the recurring decimal. That is extremely, extremely important for the survival of our small businesses today. When we speak cash flow, we speak about the money coming in and the money going out of the business. And if that's not managed properly, that can lead to serious trouble down the road. So the advice here is to encourage our small business owners to really keep a watchful eye on the cash flow. Make sure you know what is happening. Make sure you prepare forecasts so that you do not find yourself in a situation where you do not have money in the business to cover your day-to-day expenses. Again, most of what I'm going to say would be a bit of reinforcing what was said before. I think it is critical in COVID. We've seen a lot of hardship in the small business sector. And we just want to say that it is important for small business owners to remain frugal. I think too often we see a lot of small businesses do things really and truly that they're not in a position to do. Salaries is one such thing. Salaries should be managed. You as a small business owner, you do not want to be paid salaries that are over the roof. You want to be paying salaries that the business can afford. That will not have a negative impact on the business. In addition to that, you want to keep a separate account. Because too often what happens, we see a lot of small business owners, they commingle the business funds and the personal funds, and that can create a nightmare for taxes and for you to gauge or assess profitability. We want you to be able to create a separate account where you have only business funds being channeled through that account, so you know exactly what is happening. I think it was mentioned earlier, but again, I just want to reinforce. I think quite a few small businesses today, what we see they do, they spend a lot of money on advertising or marketing. I think with social media, we can find a cheaper way to market our small businesses without having to pay the mainstream media big dollars to sell the products and services that small businesses offer. So we need to keep a watchful eye on the marketing budget, especially with social media. As I say, that is a cheap alternative, and we can reach a wide audience through social media to market the goods and services that small businesses offer. something that is very dear to me, and I think COVID has brought it to the fore, is a rainy day fund. I think it is important that small business owners try to maintain a rainy day fund. And I've always said that we should have some reserve somewhere for at least 3 to 6 months to keep the business afloat in the event that something happens and the business finds itself in some difficulty. So that is another thing I think that is important, keeping a rainy day fund to ensure that the business can meet its commitments in the event that something happens. The payment of statutory deductions. I mean, that can cripple a small business if it is allowed to go uncontrolled and not paid. So there has to be a focus on making those payments, as they are mandatory payments and you cannot run away from them. So it is important that small business owners ensure that those payments go through and that they avoid any kind of penalty. Because the authorities would typically levy penalties when those payments come in late. Something else I think that is important in this difficult time for small businesses to try and remain afloat is for them to manage as much as possible the cost of utilities. I think I have seen quite a few small businesses struggle with their utility payments, and I think we need to keep a watchful eye on utility costs, electricity costs, water costs, the cost of data. It is important in these times really to just focus on those things to ensure that they do not go out of control and that they remain within budget. But I also think finally that we need to encourage small businesses to make projections, financial projections. I think Jarek would have spoken about it earlier, but again, just reinforcement that it is important that you make some forecasts so you know where the business will be going on a month-to-month basis, and you are not caught in any kind of surprise mode. So just preparing for that kind of eventuality will allow small business owners to cope when those challenges come their way. We saw COVID, and quite a few small businesses were not prepared. But I think COVID has taught us some serious lessons. I know it's tough, but there's a lot that we can take away from COVID to really strengthen the resilience of our small businesses in the ECCU. So I just wanted to reinforce some of what I said. That is my contribution for now. Thanks.
Thank you, gents. Permit me to pose 2 questions to both of you. What percentage of your revenue would you say would be best for a rainy day fund? The first question. And the second, considering how expensive it can be to prepare financial statements, is it best to have an in-house accountant or hire accounting services from outside?
Okay, I'm going to start, Jerry. Stephen, you want me to start?
Sure.
Okay, all right. As I said earlier, I have always used the 3 to 6 months. I've never really calculated it in terms of a percentage of revenue. But I think as a business owner, you should have an idea as to what your day-to-day expenses are and how much cash you would need in that business to keep the business afloat for at least a month. My benchmark has always been 3 to 6 months of cash in the business to keep you afloat in the event that some eventuality should come your way.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say probably 6 months is a reasonable benchmark. But I would also argue that no amount is too much, and a rainy day fund doesn't have to be idle money sitting around waiting for something to happen. I mean, you can place those funds in short-term investments, relatively safe and liquid assets, so that it's earning for you. But the idea is that you make contributions to that fund over time. It builds to a level, and no amount is too much. But I think a safe benchmark is probably 6 months, because I think, to your point, there, Nicholas, is COVID taught us that the adverse situations can be very prolonged, and so it's essential that we now get out of the idea that it might be a 2-3 months of a slump within the economy, and there's a potential that things can last for a protracted period of time. So, prepare for that and be ready for it. The second question was, would you mind repeating that, Kevin?
The second question was whether you should outsource your accounting services or have an in-house accountant.
Yeah, and I think that depends on the status of your business. Some businesses may be able to afford an in-house accountant. I think if you have that function within your business on a day-to-day basis, it certainly is an advantage. But do what fits your financial profile. I think it's equally effective to outsource the service if that's where your financial profile is at the time. The idea is that you do need that level of record keeping. You do need that level of expertise on the financial side to do your books and ensure that you're keeping on track and staying on top of all of the issues that we mentioned before, cash flow and all of those things, and ensuring that your receivables are being managed. Your payables, your statutory deductions, all those things are being managed, and you don't get caught off guard with unexpected items.
Yeah, just to add as well, I think we just need to reinforce as well that small business owners typically, the thinking is that the preparation of financial information is really for the bank. I think we need to just remind the small business owners that the financial is actually for them. Yes, you would need it if you have to approach a financial institution for funding, but the financial information is important for you. And as a small business owner, you have to appreciate that with that financial information, you to really assess your business. You can assess your business performance. It gives you information to know where the strengths are, where the weaknesses are, what you can do to improve the overall financial performance of the business. And the preparation of timely financial information, in addition to that, would give you an opportunity to pick up any kind of fraud that exists in your business. Because quite often we see a lot of small businesses, they do well, but because of fraud, most of them go under. And that is because there's no financial information. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that the preparation of the financial information is really not for a financial institution, but it is for the small business owner.
Thank you, gents, for reinforcing the importance for small, medium enterprises to remain frugal and also to scale back their operations to a minimum viable product. Next, we're going to invite Mr. Andre Cadogan and Gordon Julian to speak on adaptation and innovation shortly. All right, so we have both Andre Cadogan, Country Head for CIBCF CIB Grenada, and Mr. Gordon Julian, Country Head of Republic Bank Limited, St. Lucia. Welcome, gents. You have the floor.
Thanks, and good evening all. Very happy to be part of this symposium. And first let me put a thought in your head as we discuss adaptation and innovation. And that thought is this: we focus too much on change and not enough on adapting. Now, we're all familiar with the notion of change or die, and also the only thing constant is change. Hence our first and sometimes knee-jerk reaction to challenges or crises, as we have faced recently, is to change. However, I've seen where change presents challenges a bit beyond the capacity of SMEs and too far outside of their comfort zone. In my opinion, this is because change is to become something totally different, while adapt is to make suitable or to fit. And this is how SMEs can mitigate the financial impact of COVID-19. I'll share 5 ways you can adapt and 5 ways you can innovate as part of your adaptation. The ways to adapt really for small business need to be very simple. First and foremost, you need to answer customers what they want and what they need. Makes no sense? putting something in place that is not suitable for your customers. Remember, you're adapting, you're not changing. Invest in learning. Ongoing knowledge about your chosen industry and market helps you to be able to evolve during the process. Invest in training new skills for your employees. These employees will be important to you moving forward with any adaptation or innovation that you put in place. Empower persons. Now, most of us know employees are different nowadays. You have to treat to changes in cultures, different personalities, a lot of things that come along with millennial segment, for instance. So we have to make sure that we empower persons and recognize that employees are different. That's one way that we have to adapt. We can't paint each employee with the same brush. And fifth, make mistakes and learn from them. So as you go along as a small business person, you will make mistakes. It's not time to throw in the towel. It's time for you to learn from the mistakes and try to adapt as you go along. 5 things I'll tell you to do in the innovation part of your adapting. Firstly, you need to adopt a digital strategy. This allows you to modernize ways customers can interact with you, access your services and products, and it helps to broaden your marketing reach while not increasing costs significantly. Secondly, automation. A way to simplify areas of a business by seeking to remove tasks performed by employees. Automate areas in your marketing and customer service, your greetings, your customer recognition, milestones if that's part of your business. Basically look for repetitive processes that you do as a business owner and find ways to automate them. Thirdly, copy best in class. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. Learn from your competitors. Copy what works and try to do it just as good or even better. As a colleague mentioned earlier, outsourcing. This frees you up as a business owner to concentrate on key areas that might not be getting attention because of other hands-on needs. SMEs struggle sometimes to find resources they need to grow, and outsourcing is one way of encouraging outside experts to handle areas successfully. And fifth, partnerships. Not everyone is creative, but innovation requires thinking on a creative level. So why not find the right partner to work with? SME growth plateaus regularly because of lack of new ideas, and this is often due to the fact that entrepreneurs want to come up with all the ideas on their own. However, given the rapid pace at which markets and customer demands are evolving, it's important to constantly be aligned with creative experts. So, colleagues, those listening, those participating in the forum, don't change, adapt, and innovate. I look forward to your questions in this segment. Over to you, Julian.
Thank you, Andre. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. It's a pleasure to be on the panel this evening. And not only because I'm a big fan of Financial Information Month, but because I am a firm believer that Financial Information Month over the years has really gone a long way in terms of growing the level of awareness and financial literacy, particularly during the period of the pandemic. Now, the pandemic has affected small businesses in a significant way. The small businesses, they represent the vulnerable sectors of our economy. And due to the closures and shutdowns and curfew, we have seen what is done to the small business sector. Small businesses that have been able to respond quickly by adapting and innovating have been the ones that were able to survive. As the business environment has changed, and we have the view that the change that has occurred, we have no idea when it's going to end. And in fact, we believe that the change is probably going to be long lasting. We don't expect that we ever going to get back to the way things were. So the quickest response that businesses have done really is to adapt to the change. And that's an immediate response to the pandemic. And it's really taking what you have and tailoring it to suit the new environment. So we've had shutdowns and lockdowns, physical distancing and curfews and so forth. And businesses, they've done things like, online appointment systems. In the banks, we've moved from an in-branch banking to really promoting online banking. We've had, schools moving from in-class arrangements to online classes, and we all know of the shortcomings of that type of arrangement. Even gyms, for example, gyms have responded by facilitating, say, classes and gym sessions via Zoom, even WhatsApp video calls they've done. So that is really adapting to the changes or the changes or the impact of the pandemic. So these are all examples of moving from brick and mortar to what I call click and mortar. Innovation is a little bit more permanent and a little bit more long lasting. And adaptation is perhaps not going to be sufficient for the long-term survival of small businesses. So what one needs to consider is how are we going to innovate to be able to survive not only during the pandemic, but way past the pandemic. Is really taking a hard look at some of the processes, some of the methods that are being utilized, and coming up with new ideas, new processes. Andrew spoke about automation. So these are some of the things that need to be given careful consideration. We often hear of the fact that necessity is the mother of invention. And we are all born innovators. So let us use this pandemic and the circumstances that we're faced with right now to not only adapt to the changes, but find innovative ways of doing things. We know of the impact, some of the common examples of innovation, Netflix and Uber and Airbnb and Amazon. And these are all well documented, really great examples of innovation that has transformed the way we do things. Closer to home, we have, for example, the ECCBD cash. It's a great example of innovation. And while it has not yet taken root as quickly as we would like, but we expect that over time, we will see that form of payment being embedded and entrenched in our very everyday life. I mean, Netflix, for example, started in 1998. So what we're seeing today is a culmination of over 20 years of being around and pounding the pavement and growing the clientele. So let us expect that as we innovate, it's going to take root overnight. But you have to believe in what you're doing, believe in the solutions, and stick with it. And we think that over time, you will see the results and the benefits of those changes. Small businesses are in while there might be challenges, but there are also opportunities. Because of the small size, they can respond much easier. They can adapt and innovate much easier because you don't need to go into a boardroom or a lot of people coming together to agree on a direction. Pretty much a small business, you're in a situation, you can respond quickly to whatever situation that you're faced with. So use that as an opportunity. However, there are challenges. Sometimes you may have lack of resources, lack of the wherewithal to make the changes that you want to make. So let that not be a deterrent because the solutions that you're looking for may be closer than you think. So if you adopt a more positive mindset, as the challenges occur, small businesses should not play dead because we want to make sure that we do all the things we need to do and make all the fundamental changes to be able to survive not only the pandemic, but all the different issues or the myriad of issues that small business face with, because our destiny lies in our survival. I'll take any questions that anybody has.
Thank you, gents, for your input in terms of small is beautiful, Julian, and equally the importance to adapt and innovate. So I have two questions to pose. The first, and I'll just allow the response and then I pose a second. I own a restaurant and the pandemic has affected my business significantly. What advice do you have for me going forward? laying off employees has been a real challenge for me.
Andrew, you want to take that?
Yeah, sure, no problem. We can get started. Well, the challenge, well, you pointed out the challenge in terms of laying off the employees. Now, one of the things I was mentioning about is really getting to also, invest some time in your employees. If those employees can add value, that can help you to innovate. Sometimes employees have creative ideas. Those employees can become runners for the business. They can deliver stuff. They might be interested in starting their own delivery aspect of your business, to be able to help you to continue to operate and still get your product to different households, different businesses. So don't. Sometimes our knee-jerk reaction, as I mentioned, maybe to cut numbers, but we might want to change how we are actually using those numbers. What is it that these employees can do or add value to your business? They may have ideas, and also, sometimes we might just need to manage the process over time, not necessarily make a definitive have a definitive solution in terms of this is the reduced set of numbers. I'll tell you why. When I had an experience going back up to some restaurants here in Grenada, and one of the things that you could see was that persons who were working were very happy to be back out to work, but they were very stretched. And because they were stretched, even though you can get a genuine sense of their willingness to provide a great service, there weren't enough staff. So sometimes you might be thinking that, yes, we have to have those numbers reduced and continue to keep the numbers or benefit from the cut, but we might want to evaluate as we go along. I think the pandemic for restaurant owners is one where up and down, you have to be constantly looking at what the market is asking for. You really can't sit back and say, well, I'm a restaurant, I offer in-service, I offer this meal, I offer this over the years, people like this. You have to evaluate and really try and figure out what is it that I can do different? What is it that the customers are asking for? What is it, how I can use my existing staff? So my suggestion to you, really take a step back. Don't change what you were doing in terms of maybe even your numbers or the period at which you stay closed or reopen. Evaluate it at every step along the way. You're going to have to constantly evaluate the restaurant business in order to be remain in business and also to be able to please your customers. So that's my suggestion.
Yeah, Andre, I mean, I don't know if I have much to add. I mean, on a good day, the restaurant business is a tough business. The pandemic has been really, really hard on the restaurant business. I mean, here in St. Lucia, for example, you may have a lockdown or curfew being announced literally overnight. The restaurants would have had their stock ahead of time. They would have prepped the meals and so forth. And then literally overnight, you're being told that, listen, you are going to have a lockdown. So there were significant losses that the small businesses would have had to absorb. I think really and truly the solution or some of the solutions that can be implemented lies in the ease of ordering, online ordering systems, so streamlining that and delivery. Obviously, dining services would be discontinued in many cases. But people at work, people need to eat at their homes or at work. So if you can streamline that delivery aspect of the operation, as well as streamline the ordering aspect of the operation, I think that's probably a good starting point. And find efficiencies in terms of the ordering of your inventory and that type of thing, and make them maximize use. I mean, obviously, you will not be able to keep all your staff; you'll have to rotate them. But you have to really think deep, long and hard in terms of the kind of clientele that you have and how you can reorganize your business to be able to survive, notwithstanding the challenges that you face.
Okay, so I have two more questions for you. Another came in terms of the excitement that you're generating. So this one is a human resource management type of question. It pertains to, I own a small business with a mix of older and millennial employees. This tends to cause tensions, particularly when attempts to change the culture. How do I treat with that?
you open up a whole new topic about emotional intelligence. I think the leader has to firstly kind of understand that there is going to be that challenge, right? And both the older and the newer have to be educated about the cultures that come with the two differences, right? And that's part of the education process. Ongoing education doesn't always mean about the products and services you offer, but also it's about your people. And the leader would have to really get in touch with the emotional intelligence side of themselves and be able to bridge the gap. And bridging the gap doesn't mean that each person, they're going to understand or the other is going to, but they have to recognize that it is acceptable for both eras to coexist, right? And the leader has to demonstrate that, because I'll give you a classic example of the cell phone. Millennials will not stay off their phone. They will not, right? And a leader might be influenced by the older segment of their staff to try to enforce that, cell phone usage could be distracting. But to millennial, that is life, right? So the leader has to be the filter and the bridge. So as a business owner, you have to be the filter and the bridge constantly to make sure that both parties know that, what they're feeling is okay. And really and truly, it's not going to change. Either party is not going to change. That's why you need that bridge in between. So I'm sorry I don't have an answer where you think it will get better. You actually have to be the glue that holds things together and help both parties to understand it's really an era and a culture thing, and it's okay for both parties to feel that the way they are.
Yeah, I'm not an HR expert, but whenever you're dealing with issues of that nature, it always creates a whole level of complexity. I think everyone have a role to play. There's a role for the young millennials, and there's also a role for the more experienced persons within the organization. As Andre indicated, I think that the leader has to set the tone, has to set that lead by example, and really find a way to bridge the gap between the millennials, who have a very important role to play, as well as the more experienced persons within the team. And you may also want to avail yourself to external support, because there are agencies and HR experts who might be able to do team building exercises to be able to build that level of camaraderie and get the teams to work together. Because at the end of the day, your human resource is your biggest asset, and you need your team to work to be firing on all cylinders. And if there's disharmony and people pulling in different directions, then it's going to impact on your productivity and your output.
Thank you, Jens. The final question. Do you see any possibilities for the region to take a giant leap ahead, given the opportunities presented by the digital way of operating?
I mean, if I could start, I mean, in the region, we've had a dependency on things like bananas and sugarcane and financial services and the tourism industry. And for one reason or the other, there has always been issues that has impacted on our growth and our development, and we've always been reliant on the export market, preferential treatment, whatever the case may be. I think that the era of digital technology really sort of evens the playing field, and it gives us an excellent opportunity to be able to compete on a global scale without so much of that impediment and those restrictions that otherwise may have existed in the other traditional type of industries that we've pursued in the past. So I think that we have perhaps the best opportunity as a region to be able to punch above our weights. We have bright talent. A number of our residents, our citizens have gone to top schools across, globally. And I think that we need to continue to promote that and encourage development of digital technology, apps and music and the arts, and anything that would leverage the technology, because we have a great infrastructure. And it's really for us as a people to have the confidence and to continue to push push ahead and give us that level of growth that we're looking for.
I'll just add one thing to that, Joe Gordon, and the answer to the question is yes, for me, but the leap has to be together. It cannot be separate. And I'm gonna use a specific example. Admiration for the move and the direction the indigenous banks are taking and the lead role they're taking in this region. And if I was to say one of the things that I know that persons would raise concern about is the pace at which they are developing digitally. And that leap made together as indigenous banks, as one group of indigenous banks, would be faster and more effective than if they try to go it alone. You know, I'll dare to say that if you want specific examples, the indigenous banks can have one system programmer offering a service of digitization for the EC region. And that way you're actually moving forward together, not each, and I sure become less expensive for the indigenous banks, to be able to get people to where they want to be very quickly. So the leap, yes, but it has to be together. It cannot be separate.
A resounding thank you. Oh, sorry, Julian, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Moran, just to let you know that Carol Mangal had some connectivity issues. So she's actually on my phone and she's available to do a presentation whenever you're ready. We're gonna adapt, as I said, we have to adapt to changes and we're adapting here. So she can, I think her voice can project through my system. Right, Carol? Can you say something?
Yes, Gordon, thank you very much. We certainly adapted.
All right, wonderful.
Okay, so you're leading the digital way forward, Gordon. Good initiative. So permit me then, without further ado, we're going to invite Ms. Carol Mangal, the president of the Bankers Association of St. Lucia, Eastern Caribbean Currency Union Bankers Association, and also Ms. Maria Jackson, founder of Cacao St. Lucie, and Mr. Jonathan Alain, Commerce and Industry Officer for the Ministry of Commerce in St. Lucia. So Ms. Mangal, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and good evening, fellow panelists, and good evening, listeners. So I'm speaking on the section, seeking new opportunities. And we all know that without customers, there is no business. So if you are going to go into a new business, the first thing to do is to listen to your potential customers. If you already have a business and you're looking at a further opportunity, then you will need to listen to your potential customers as well as your existing customers. You ascertain their needs. What do they need? Too often, business people think they know what customers need more than the customers themselves. And normally, businesses fail as a result. You need to listen to their wants. What are their wants? What are their challenges? What are their frustrations with the industry in which you are operating or the industry you plan to operate in? What do they like about your product or the service that you intend to offer? Oh, and the good thing you also need to ascertain is what do they dislike about it? Because when they dislike something about it, it gives you an opportunity to adapt. It gives you an opportunity to innovate. What would they like to continue? Why would they like to continue to use your product? So the first thing when you're seeking a new business opportunity, the people who you are going to serve or the people who will help you to earn revenue, you need to ascertain their needs, their wants, their challenges, their frustrations. The second thing businesses need to do when seeking new opportunities is to look at your competitors. We don't operate in a vacuum. There are competitors. There will be persons before us. There will be persons coming into the industry after us. What are your competitors doing? And above all, what are they doing right? And also, what are they not doing? Where are they failing? These are some of the things you need to do before you enter a business, before you start up a business. Another thing you need to ascertain is, why do customers go to them instead of to other competitors. So you may see, for instance, a restaurant, you may see a lot of patrons flocking a restaurant, but you may see the restaurant next door is relatively empty. What is causing the variance in terms of the customer base? Another thing in terms of looking at the competitors is that you need to ascertain once you get the competitors, you need to ascertain what it is that they are doing that will help you identify what you should do as somebody coming into the industry. And the third thing I would say, you need to look at the industry in which you want to operate or the industry which you are operating in and want to continue to operate in. Examine the trends in that industry. Is that industry declining or is it increasing in importance? It does not really make sense to go in an industry which is declining. And I will give an example. I recall many years ago, we would be renting videotapes. That industry is declining. Would there be a need for somebody to be renting videotapes? First of all, you can hardly get video players. So people need to look at things like that when they are starting a business. Another thing that you need to do in terms of the industry is to continuously educate yourself on the latest trends. Get insights in the latest techniques that are happening in the industry to allow you to thrive in the industry. Absorb yourself and become an expert in the industry. All these are the things that will certainly help in making your business viable. It is also important to subscribe to industry publications, join associations. I think somebody mentioned that earlier. And another thing I would say that is important when you're seeking new opportunities is good to follow industry experts on social media. It does not really make sense to reinvent the wheel. So those persons will provide you with insights, knowledge, techniques to help you, especially with startup businesses. And as a banker, one of the things I will always say, speak to your bank. Your bank is an invaluable tool. Your personal banker, your business banking manager, they will certainly provide insights. They will help you start up your business, provide you with the tools, help you with your cash flow and so on, as mentioned earlier. So, and one of the last things I will say, I know I started with the customer, but I want to say that when you are going into a new business, also look at the staff that you will have. You must never forget the needs of the staff because they too are extremely important in terms of making your business successful when you are looking at new opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Permit me to invite Jonathan to share his perspective.
Good night to all. On behalf of the Ministry of Commerce, I'd like to thank the association for inviting us to take part in this virtual business symposium. I think the topic for tonight is extremely important. Seeking new opportunities, especially in the environment that we live in, where COVID basically has caused a number of businesses to go out of business, but it has also created a number of new businesses, a number of new persons have been able to take advantage of the opportunities that exist. Mrs. Mangal looked at a number of the areas in which the new opportunities exist and how persons could leverage it. I wanted to look at a little bit in terms of the technology. I think one of the important ways in which persons now could take advantage of the opportunities that existed through the leveraging of technology. Technology has caused, has created many opportunities for persons to offer their services in a quicker, instant, more reliable way to their customers. And especially because of the environment with COVID, we've seen now that customers require more. One of the things that COVID has caused is the social distancing. So persons are looking for options in which they could make payments for products and services without having to come into businesses. And this is where technology such as online banking, online payments are important. We've seen even the rise of a number of online businesses who basically have come into play to fill in some of these gaps that exist right now. So leveraging the technology that exists is extremely important. Even in your business to make it more efficient, based on some of the previous presenters, one of the areas that they mentioned is in terms of accounting, persons not basically recording and keeping track of the finances of their business. And we've seen that now through apps and accounting softwares that persons would be able to manage their accounts on their phones, and be able to produce profit and loss statements or cash flow statements that would help them to easily see the cash position of the business and be able to make better decisions. We've also seen through social media, persons are better able to reach out to their customers. They're better able to advertise their products and their services. They're better able to communicate to their clients. They're better able to sell their products and services to their clients. So this is another way in which persons could leverage the technology to basically create or to seek new opportunities. I think also the banking sector has created a number of services online, the apps, where persons could take advantage of the ability to do wire transfers, the ability to perform many functions that you would need to go into the bank to do online. This basically helps your business to be more efficient. These are things right now that you would be able to do online and help you to save time to focus more on what is important in your business, and that is the management of your business, adapting to the changes as the previous presenters spoke about, and changing up of your business model. Also, I think there are a number of areas where opportunities exist, and we see that in personalized shopping, health-related sector has created a lot of opportunities. Now, with COVID and because of non-communicable diseases on the rise, persons are looking for health services, personalized trainers, healthy foods, healthy supplements, and these are the ways in which persons could come up with new opportunities. As Carol said, it involves us scanning of the environment to see what gaps exist, what unsatisfaction exists among consumers. It's all about solving problems or resolving a need that exists in the environment. So scanning the environment is very important, and looking for those gaps, looking for those opportunities so that you could basically capitalize on them to start off your businesses. Another point that I want to reiterate, coming from the Ministry of Commerce, is that there are a number of support services that are provided by a number of agencies that you could take advantage of, and persons within the various jurisdictions need to look at those organizations and see how they could join them or become a part of them in order to help them to take advantage of the opportunities that exist. I would stop here and welcome any questions if there are any.
Thank you, colleagues. In light of the fact that there are evolving areas or industries, particularly the non-traditional industries, the question here is, what is the appetite, particularly in terms of financing or banking appetite for industries that are focused on green, renewable energy, ICT, and also e-commerce, export of services. So this is to you, Ms. Mangal. If you could share with us in terms of from your experience or at least discussions at the level of the Bankers Association, how is the banking industry trying to accommodate focus on environment, focus on tech, focus on e-commerce?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Like anything else, banking is evolving in line with the needs of our customers, and our customers being business people as well as personal customers. The e-commerce sector has experienced substantial growth during the pandemic, as most citizens are avoiding travel in public spaces. The reduced movement has also increased the use of digital shopping channels as customers prefer them over physical brick and mortar stores. And as a result, we in banking, in fact, the pandemic allowed us to achieve things that we had been clamoring for, especially in having our clients to move to digital channels. So in terms of e-commerce, this is certainly the way to go. And as banks, we are facilitating that. You also talked about green energy. Obviously, this is the way to go. Climate change is certainly affecting small islands like ours. And especially, we are not the ones who are producing a lot of the greenhouse gases. And there are actually incentives in place, especially from the government level, to assist customers to avail of facilities. Like I think Lucilec has the electricity system where you can use the solar panels and transact with them, where you get a reduced bill and you can actually sell energy to them. So we are providing financing for those things, be it as a business level or at a personal level. From the business level, one thing I must say is that people need to have good proposals. And hence the reason why, as I said in the beginning, you need to look at the customer base who's going to buy from you. So when you come with a proposal for something of that nature, especially if you're going to be transacting business, selling it to customers, there must be a customer base who's willing to buy that product. So in terms of banking, we are evolving as our customers are evolving. We are providing, we are tailoring our financial solutions to meet our customers' needs.
Thank you. Mr. Alin, a question to you. So we're aware that China is deemed or considered to be the world manufacturer. It's estimated around 30% of manufactured output. And there's been a current discussion or dialogue within the Western Hemisphere, in particular in terms of nearshoring production. What is, in your opinion, opportunities or industries one could explore in the space of nearshoring?
Could you repeat the last question?
So
the opportunities that exist in...
The opportunities that may exist in terms of nearshoring, in terms of manufactured goods, let's say electronic components. We're aware internationally issues with chip, issues with different inputs that would go into the manufacturing process.
Right. Again, coming from the background of the Ministry of Commerce, in terms of technology, unless someone is able to come up with something that is new, that they would have some sort of proprietorship over and the ability to gain the capital to produce, I think it would be difficult to compete against countries like China and the US because of the resources that they have. I think in terms of manufacturing, what we within the region could look at are the items that are unique to us as Caribbean people. Take for example, right now I've seen that CMOS production is actually on the rise, and it's being sold in the US, it's being sold in the UK as a product that is very potent and a boost for your immune system. So the demand for CMOS has risen tremendously. So we've seen CMOS products, the demand for CMOS products has risen also. So we have CMOS gels, we have CMOS capsules, we have CMOS beauty products. So these are some of the ingredients and materials that could be found within the region. So in my opinion, I think persons need to look at what we have within the region in terms of the raw materials that we could use that is in demand outside of the region in order to look for the new opportunities that exist now. Like I said, as much as we can produce electronics, we can produce some of the components and the parts, but I think competitively, it would be very difficult. So we need to look at what we have, what is unique to us, whether it be in the area of agro-processing, in the area of craft, even in the area of raw agricultural products. These are the manufacturing areas I think that we need to look at to see if we could leverage to create new opportunities.
So a resounding thank you, Ms. Mangal and Mr. Alin. We now move to the next panel on funding assistance option. We invite Ms. Carmen Trigg Gomez, the Chief Executive Officer for the Eastern Caribbean Partial Credit Guarantee Corporation, Mr. Omar Birch-Smith, Branch Manager for FCIS St. Lucia, and Mr. Cedric Charles, Senior Manager, Investment Banking for Bank of St. Lucia. Ms. Trigg Gomez, you have the floor, ma'am. Can you check your microphone, please? Carmen, I think it's not activated. We're not hearing you. Okay, so what we'll do, Carmen, let me invite Omar to present while we walk out the logistics behind the scene with you, okay? Thank you. Omar?
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. I'm being heard, right? Okay, just wanted to confirm that. All right, I'd like to thank the organizers of tonight's panel, and I want to welcome all the attendees as well as all the other panelists. It's been a very interesting discussion so far, and we've gotten to a point in the discussion where we will chat somewhat on sources of financing. I think Andre hit the nail on the head pretty well when he said that adaptation is the key for survival. And we've seen small businesses thrive in our region, but we've also seen a number of them dissipate quite quickly shortly after, rising. And I mean, there are a number of factors for that, and many of the panelists touched on that. But I think Gordon and Carol, they articulated it well when they indicated that innovation is the order of the day. And I think in the ECCU, innovation is especially important because we've seen quite a bit of acquisition and consolidation of our traditional businesses, and it sort of crowded out space in the market for startups with some of your traditional sort of product offerings and service offerings. And as most of the panelists have highlighted, the pandemic has created a very good opportunity for innovating and for new businesses to come to the fore. What we've seen in our region in particular, in terms of financing and funding, are the traditional sources of financing. So a lot of microfinancing agencies supported by governments and multilateral agencies. We've had grant funding from donor agencies and countries, blocks of countries like the EU. We've had development bank funding in a number of our ECCU territories, and of course, commercial bank funding, which has sort of declined over the years as the banks have become more risk averse and have taken a more strategic and a more thoughtful process to how they analyze credit, and have sort of geared towards the larger institutions. So there is a gap that needs to be filled, and the fact is that capital is required. In all businesses, capital is required. If you're in manufacturing and you want to expand your markets, because you want to go beyond the 600,000 of us in the ECCU, you're going to have to be HACCP certified, and it's a very tedious, expensive process. So you do need capital to fund that. If you want to expand your services, whether through innovation or whether through automation, that requires capital as well. So the key here is, how do we go about raising this capital? And I think a tremendous opportunity is being missed in our region. I was on a Financial Information Month panel last year, and I made the same point. We continue to have a lot of liquidity in our region. All right, at the end of 2019, we had over 21 billion in commercial bank deposits, and that figure has likely grown throughout the pandemic as savings have continued to increase, as people spend less, right? Where we need to get serious and what needs to be done, we need to marry that excess capital in the ECCU with our innovators, all right? So you find that the holders of capital are generally older, more conservative individuals and companies, right? And they may only seek opportunities in those traditional types of investments, like your real estate, your fixed deposits, and your traditional businesses. I mean, in a time like this, you still have individuals who have capital. I'm sure my banking colleagues on the call may tell you that you still have investors or folks with cash trying to build office buildings when more and more people are working from home. And Carol did speak to it. You need to assess where the opportunities are. So there is less of a demand and less of a need for those traditional types of assets. But then you have investors, you have innovators here in St. Lucia and throughout the OACS with some brilliant ideas that if we were to inject even the slightest amount of capital into, you could see exponential growth and exponential returns. So you talk about funding options. I mean, there are a few that come to mind. We think about venture capital, and venture capital is really an ideal for startups. I don't want to be too granular on the call, but venture capital is really where you get an injection of capital, and you also get an injection of expertise as well to guide you along the process, with the overall aim of buying back your shares from the venture capitalists at some point. And a number of startups, world famous companies, were startups that were aided by venture capital: WhatsApp, Groupon, Alibaba, Uber, Airbnb. All of those started from venture capital. So there is a need for that in our region, right? When you go a step further from venture capital, you enter into private equity now. And what private equity is, private equity actually benefits investors as well as companies. So investors, large institutional investors, wealthy retail investors, they can invest in private equity, and private equity in turn can take not necessarily startups, but those established SMEs and sort of get them to the level where they can actually now approach a commercial bank or look for a capital market solution. So one of the things I should have mentioned that when I began my remarks was that I'm the country manager for First Citizens Investment Services. We're a broker, a licensed securities broker in the OACS, right? So we deal with capital market transactions. And generally I get invited to speak at events like that, and I have to explain, well, there isn't necessarily a capital market solution at this current time, because the company is still at its infant stage, and they really do need that injection of capital first to get them to a place that would allow them to approach a broker and say, listen, I want to issue some corporate paper, I want to issue some equity in order for me to raise that capital to expand. And one of the things that you have to be mindful of is what are investors looking for? Okay, I mean, investors are always in search of return. The scale and the timing of it, I mean, that can always be debated, but in the end, profitability is what will always win the day. And there are certain questions that you need to ask. What is unique about my business? How will it continue to generate revenue over time? Can my business adapt? Can we pivot and head in a direction that we need to go based on where the market is going? These are the sort of questions to which the answer is always, how can I continue to drive revenue? All right. And just a little bit, I mean, it will take some time before you get to that level, but if you were to look at a capital market solution, I mean, there are varying options. You could issue debt, you could issue equity. There are some requirements. You need $1 million in capital. You need to be in existence for 18 months. You have to prepare a prospectus. And so then it then becomes a very involved process. Your annual reports, the first panelists, Jarek and Islin, spoke to the requirements and ensuring that your books are in order. So it does take some time. So I mean, I can disclose tonight that very soon you will be hearing an announcement of a partnership between market players and the Caribbean Development Bank to try to foster more of a private equity model in our region, in our sub-region, so that we can actually start getting the capital where it needs to go, into the hand of the innovators and the small business operators. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Let me invite Cedric to offer his comments and input.
Yes, thank you and good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here. Omar and I essentially work in similar industries. So Omar essentially said most of what I was about to start off with. So a lot of what I will be saying is essentially repetition. I am happy to be here because I believe financial information is critical for small business. This pandemic has taught us that, and it has been very harsh to small businesses. I mean, many small businesses had to adjust to their day-to-day operations because the pandemic was difficult. It was challenging, and it raised significant liquidity concerns. And the reality is, small businesses are going to continue to struggle until this crisis is under control. However, what is critical is for us to understand that small businesses play a critical role in most economies, particularly in the ECC. In some territories, they even account for 55% of GDP. They represent 80% of the business population. They are an important contributor to job creation, and they are very important to global economic development. So even with all of that, the importance of small business economic growth lies with accessing financing. And accessing financing is a key constraint for small businesses. And this unmet financing need or financing gap is critical for small businesses to grow. And for us as a country to meet our sustainable economic growth, which is one of the SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, and that's important. So how do we address this financing gap? Omar did speak to a few of these areas, these options, but the reality is there's not a plethora of options. And it is challenging for small businesses to obtain financing. I mean, there are options like credit facilities, crowdfunding. I mean, you go public, list on the ECSE. You can get an angel investor. You can seek venture capital. These are options. But what I am here to discuss, and I believe Omar as well, is not what's available, but what is possible. And what we have to be mindful of, I mean, Tesla did not start as $1 trillion company. Tesla started as a small business, an SME. But right now, Tesla is the first $1 trillion company that we've seen. So we want to plant the seed. We want to discuss what's possible so that we and small businesses can engage financial institutions so that they can be the disruptors, utilize digital technology, disrupt the industry. And who knows, we may possibly see a Tesla in our regional economy. So essentially, I think it's important for us to have the discussion ask the questions and engage the financial institution so that we can disrupt the traditional financing mechanism.
All right, thank you, gents. While we try to facilitate Carmen, to patch Carmen in, I'm just going to pose a question to the team. So two things came to the fore. We do have a lot of liquidity within the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, and I really love where we're going with the discussion on venture capital, even in terms of how do we get more equity. I wanted to, so the question really is more novel way of financing. So I'm familiar with Jamaica Stock Exchange, for example, in 2009, April, where they launched their junior stock exchange to promote investments and entrepreneurship, employment, and economic development, and where there were some tax benefits in the process, such that for the first 5 years, firms that were listed on the stock exchange had a total tax break. Instead of paying the 33.3%, they had a tax break from corporation tax in the first 5 years, and in subsequent 5 years, a 50% tax break. So in light of the limited activity in the Eastern Caribbean Stock Exchange, this question to you, Omar, what, in your view, you believe can really inject a lot of activity to engender more equity-type trading, or even bringing on board more firms within the ECSE?
All right, thanks for the question. It's an excellent question. It's something that at a broker level and at a market level we've discussed several times. And what we've seen is that there is an eagerness from a number of small businesses to explore the possibility of getting listed. And I mean, the requirements right now are onerous, and I'll just be frank. It is still out of the reach of many, unfortunately, which is why, well, I would have mentioned, and Cedric would have alluded to as well, that there has to be, there's a significant middle portion that's missing. And that is where the development needs to occur. So I think at this current stage, we have investors, and when I say investors, I mean institutional and individual investors who are seeking opportunities. And we have innovators and entrepreneurs who do need capital and are seeking capital. And the key now is to bring them together and to find a way to bring them together, right? Developing an ecosystem through partnerships, through our governments, through institutions like the OECS, and with assistance from CARICOM and some of the other multilaterals that we deal with, to create that ecosystem where we can actually present the opportunities to those investors, highlighting and illustrating where the opportunities are, the ability to invest and to see their money grow. And I think that's not going to happen overnight. That's going to take some time, because we really have to develop that sort of mindset of moving away from bank financing, moving away from that traditional financing, and start looking towards more equity. But then the equity will not start off from your traditional capital markets. It has to take a sort of private route before we get to the capital markets. Because one of the things about capital markets, you must always understand, capital markets are public markets. And you have to be able to disclose a lot of information, and you have to be able to prepare reports. These are very resource intensive, and they require a level of expertise that just a number of small businesses don't have. So when a few years ago, the ECSE did explore the possibility of launching a junior market, and it's not off the table. There was a consultancy where they would have visited all the islands in the ECCU, met with potential targets, medium-sized businesses, very small businesses, to assess what the appetite was. And it was discovered that generally there just isn't, a lot of our businesses in the region are family owned. They aren't necessarily willing to disclose a lot of information. And a lot of them, they just weren't up to scratch where the reporting was concerned. So there has to be an eagerness on the part of a number of our business people as well to get to the next level. And they have to be willing to do what it takes to get there. So it's going to take some time. But I firmly believe before we get to that stage where the actual market, or the actual exchange rather, launches a a junior market, and there is some level of increased activity, that the middle portion is what needs to be addressed first.
Thank you for a comprehensive response, Omar. I'm going to invite Carmen to speak, colleagues, and then we'll go back to the question and answer. Carmen, you have the floor. Welcome, Carmen. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Good evening again, everybody. These are really the signs of the times. Technology fails us when we least expect it to, but technology has helped us get back in the swing of things. So I want to talk to you to continue with what the two other panelists have been discussing. I want to talk to you about the funding assistance option being offered by the Eastern Caribbean Partial Credit Guarantee Corporation. So let's talk a little bit about money. What does money do for your business? It makes your business go and grow, and without it, your business can die. How do you get it? Most businesses borrow from family, friends, and started savings. Some even say that they borrow from pools. But there comes a time when these sources cannot provide the capital needed for you to grow and develop. Research has shown that to grow and develop, larger sources of funding are needed. So enter the financial institutions. The financial institutions have been a source of funding for businesses at the middle of their growth trajectory, and it has worked well in many instances. However, for our SMEs, it's proven to be particularly difficult because, as you know, our bank collateral, or as we call it in the Caribbean, security, and more times than not, our SMEs are unable to come up with the level of collateral required for the loans that they need to fund their businesses. What the ECPCGC does is it provides that bit of missing collateral up to 75 or 80% of the amount that the bank is asking for. So if you approach a bank for a loan of $100,000 and you just have some of the collateral, we will provide up to $80,000 as a guarantee to the bank and say, okay, the person has limited capacity, limited collateral, and we can come up with a balance. Therefore, your risk is reduced and you can go ahead and lend to this particular client. We have been formed by 6 member states in the ECCU: Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, Grenada, St. Kitts, Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines. And we will see to ensure at some later stage that all 8 member states are part of this particular arrangement. We work right now with the commercial banks and the development banks, and we are in the process of admitting credit unions into the scheme, or the program as we choose to call it. We ask that you work with the banks. You need to approach the banks first. They would look at whether your loan is good, whether you fit or you tick all the boxes that they have for you to get a loan. And once they are satisfied that you have your records up to date, you are registered, your idea is sound, you have some skin in the game, then they are going to send an application to us for that guarantee. And once we have looked at it and we've done our review, if we find it is sound, we'll tell them, okay, this looks like a good prospect. It's a good project. We think it's viable. We think that the customer has enough cash flow to pay for the payment. And okay, we can give you a guarantee. So that starts the guarantee process. Now, we need to say that the guarantee is not a grant. It does not mean that you don't repay the facility. The facility must be repaid. The banks will come down on the borrower like a ton of bricks if the loan is not repaid. So the normal requirements and normal parameters of a bank loan or credit union loan or development bank loan will apply. We have partners in each of the 6 member states that I talked about a little while ago. And they have funded the corporation to the tune of $12 million US. That's our capital base, from which we are able to provide guarantees to the bank. I just want to talk a little bit about the products that we offer. We had launched in June 2020 with a classic product. It's called a classic guarantee. but there was no uptake on that particular product. So we went back to the drawing board and we spoke to our financial institutions who were able to give us some feedback from their clients. And they said to us, what is being requested right now is a working capital guarantee and a startup guarantee. We launched those two products in February this year, and since February to now, we have seen some increase in demand in those particular products, and we also have seen some increase in demand for the classic products as well. So we have guarantees that cover a range of industries and a range of islands. We are across all islands. We cover a range of industries. So it's doing well. We don't select on industry. Any industry can participate once the industry is not on a decline. And I just want to mention a couple of parameters that the banks will be looking for, that we also will be looking for. We ask that you are registered either as a sole trader, a corporation, or a partnership. We ask that you have some skin in the game, or what we call some equity in the project, from about 10 to 25%. We ask that you offer some collateral, 20 to 25%, and you can speak to your banker if you have less than that, because we can make arrangements where there's a deficiency in the collateral amount. We ask that you have enough cash flow to cover the loan repayment and then some, because you never know when things happen. We want you to be able to repay your loan. The guarantee extends from 60 months to 120 months, so it covers most of the life of loans that people are seeking. And if there's a case where the loan goes on for 15 years or 180 months, we can look at that as well, but we would cover the first 10 years and then we will review after that. There is a guarantee fee payable of 2.3% of the amount that we guarantee, and that's payable on an annual basis on the reducing balance of the guarantee. You would also need to provide some records to your bank so that they can gauge the health of your business. And what I would urge you to do at this stage is to visit your financial institution. There is a partner financial institution in each one of the 6 jurisdictions that we cover. They have the information and they'll be able to assist you, whether you are a startup, meaning that you have done some work on your project, you have been in business for a couple of months, or whether you are a business who is growing or who has matured. We have the products that will cover most of your needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carmen. So, colleagues, permit me to move to the next panel. Thank you, colleagues. There was no more questions, but thank you for such a comprehensive discussion on the financing options that are available. And we move to the next panel on risk management, physical and financial. So we invite Mr. Gordon Julian and Mr. Lawrence Hadley, Manager, Treasury and Investment Bank of St. Vincent, to share with us their perspective. Gordon?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Now, when you think of a small business, a guy has a great idea. He has some capital, goes to the bank, gets some money, invest in his business, sells his product for profits, and go home and life is a dream. So what are we talking about risk management? That's for banks and Fortune 500 companies. Well, the reality is that in today's world where there's so much uncertainty and unpredictability, that is it could not be far further from the truth. We talk a lot about the pandemic, and the impact of the pandemic is well known to everyone. However, there is also the impact of climate change and hurricanes, the intensity of hurricanes and some wind that affect, coastline businesses, supply chain issues, high cost of shipping, delays in shipping, shortages of product. And all of those things affect businesses in such a significant way. And the survival of businesses, really, how well you survive and to what extent you remain afloat, is a function of the risk management systems that businesses have in place. And there's no secret about that. The better you plan and the better you have that backup system in place, is the better your chances of remaining afloat. Now, when we think of risk management, there are three key ones. Well, operational risk, market risk, economic risk, financial risk. And I kind of just want to focus on operational risk and financial risk. Now, a lot of businesses are really one-man show. And there's a high level of dependency on one individual. There's no succession planning. You know, if that one man, you know, falls sick or you know, God forbid he dies, then the business goes under. And from the context of a bank, a financier, we're very interested in knowing that there is some level of succession plan, business continuity plan, succession planning, and so forth. So that's something that definitely one wants to consider when it comes to risk management of a business. You know, proper training of your staff in order to improve product quality and minimize injury on the job. You know, how you manage your cash, whether you use point of sale terminals and night depository services in order to manage the risk of moving cash around. How are you leveraging technology and other best practices in terms of your inventory management, you know, your equipment, the maintenance. There's so many things that one can consider when it comes to risk management and ensuring that you know, when things happen, when Murphy strikes, you know, you have a really good chance of survival. Financial risk. And, you know, one of the biggest issues or risk facing small businesses is financial. The absence of cash, you know, and when cash becomes available, how is it used? And when there is unforeseen circumstances, what sort of backup mechanism and safety nets that small businesses have? You know, we talked about managing cash flow. In business, small business, cash is king. And the more you have cash available to support you in a rainy day, is the better your chance of survival. How are you managing your receivables? And I know Stephen talked about, you know, limiting your receivables to improve your collection and therefore having, you know, more cash flow available to you. But oftentimes, small businesses, they don't have a choice. You know, when small businesses provide, or their clients are large businesses or government sometimes, unfortunately, they have no choice. And they've been forced to wait 90 days, 180 days to collect. And therefore, the small businesses are unfortunately financing the working capital needs of the large businesses, which is unfortunate. And the large businesses that have the ability to go to the bank and get a line of credit, and they are unfairly, I guess, asking the small business to support their needs when the small businesses themselves, they may not have the access to go to the bank and get that same level of working capital support that is required. Being adequately capitalized. So as businesses, you know, grow and do well, you know, setting aside some of those funds for a rainy day, because you never know when you're going to fall on rocky ground and you will need to fall back on those resources. Managing your revenue stream. You know, in a pandemic, your main form of revenue may be impacted. So how well diversified are you, whether in terms of your clientele or in terms of your range of products and services? So the better diversified your revenue streams are, is the better able you are as a business to be able to withstand any changes in terms of your demand and your market for your goods and services. The biggest takeaway really from a risk management standpoint is that risk is part of an everyday business. You cannot escape risk, it's inescapable. But basically, one should not be intimidated by risk. You have to plan for it. And the better you plan for it and better prepared you are for it, is the better able you are to withstand any unforeseen circumstances. So when it comes to risk, don't risk it. do it now and really improve your chances of survival. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian. Laurent?
Thank you, moderator. Good evening to all, and allow me to wish a happy 42nd Independence anniversary to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Well, we can all agree, these are unprecedented times as it relates to the level of risk that business owners have to manage. The pandemic has forced businesses to revisit their physical layouts in an effort to comply with health protocols. These additional configurations have resulted in additional costs to these businesses. The health crisis has also led to an economic crisis, resulting in the closure of some business and threatening the continuity of others. Specifically, these challenges are compounded by the region's vulnerability to natural disasters, which can affect businesses at a macro level and directly. Over the past year and a half, businesses were forced to change their mode of delivery, utilizing digital platforms to serve its customers in an effort to minimize physical contact. Most were forced to implement stipulated health protocols, including spacing for physical distancing, increased cleaning and sanitization, installation of hand washing and sanitization stations, temperature checks, and protective barriers, which all came at an additional cost. Further, reduced disposable income levels have led to declining demand for goods and services, therefore threatening the survival of some businesses. Supply chain disruptions have further affected the availability of factors of production and have driven up prices. Now, and I think Julian mentioned this, the key to managing risk is planning.
Frozen. Technology.
Okay.
Laurent's back.
Laurent, you're back. You were speaking about the key to managing risk.
Apologies. Some connectivity issues there. Yes. My apologies. I was having some connectivity issues.
Yeah, we can hear you. Hi, Laura.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, we can. We can hear you.
Yes.
Okay.
We're hearing you.
All right. So.
Oh no, it's gone again. It's gone again. Maybe we can take some questions in the meantime.
Okay. So we actually do not have any questions specific to risk. I think you've done such a fantastic job, Julian and Laurent.
I'm back.
Oh, he's back again.
Yes. You have the floor, Laurent.
Yeah, so I don't know where you last heard me.
The last thing you said was the key to managing risk.
Yeah, no, he's having a challenge.
All right, so colleagues.
Possible to capture risk.
Go ahead, Laurent. If you can just wrap up, then by all means.
No, I think that's
okay. So Laurent retired hot. Julian would continue running down the wicket. But suffice to say, this has been quite the financial information marathon with key insights from each panelist. And I would like to invite Ms. Carol Mangle to offer in closing remarks, colleagues. But thank you, Laurent and Julian, for offering your insight on risk management.
You're welcome.
Ms. Mangle?
You're welcome, and my apologies for the disruptions there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I know all good things must come to an end, so I would like to thank our esteemed panelists, and I would also like to thank the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank for facilitating this inaugural FIM ECU Partners Symposium. We would also like to thank our media partners for broadcasting our FIM Symposium live in all of our 8-member territories. Finally, I would like to thank you, the audience, for allowing us to come into your homes to share with you pertinent information, which we hope will be useful for you during what can only be described as unprecedented times. On behalf of the ECCU Bankers Association, we wish you God's richest blessings for a brighter tomorrow. I thank you.
Information Month in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union. Financial empowerment through education. If you don't know what that is, let me tell you all about it. Learn to spend wisely. Invest to grow your money. Business stability. Step up financially. Heavily regions economy. Work to financial security. Prosperity for all of we. FIM is for you and me. FIM is for everybody. So tell your friends and your whole family. Financial empowerment through education. Build yourself and the entire vision. Learn to spend wisely. Invest to grow your money. Business stability. Step up financially. Financial Information Month. Financial empowerment through education.